Okay, so for this week's guitar lesson, we're going to break down an old school, pretty sounding country lead. Now this is slow and it'll be easy to follow along with. And there's a lot of lick ideas that I want you to get from this, and we're going to connect licks back to chord shapes, and so that you can use these licks in other things. This is all about learning how to improvise, and in this lesson in particular, it's about serving the song. So this isn't something that's going to like blow your mind when you hear it. That's not the goal of this. And sometimes the best sounding leads are the ones that are just slow and they fit right where they're supposed to, and the melody follows the chords and all of that stuff. And that's what we're going to be looking at, is how to do that and how to work that kind of thought process into your playing. You should always be serving the song and trying to do what's best for the song. There's time and a place to sort of show off and do some of that stuff. I mean, we all want to do that too as guitar players, but some of the best sounding stuff is when you do this. So in this video, we're going to go through all the lesson material. I'll give you all the licks and all the ideas for the entire lead. This is not a two-part video this week, but if you'd like to get the tablature PDF file, get the on-screen tab viewer, which has the video and the tab on the screen at the same time. It's interactive. You can loop it. You can slow it down. There's no talking in that video. You can get that. And then also the MP3 jam track so that you can practice playing everything we're going to talk through. You can get these extra materials for this lesson by going to activemelody.com and doing a search for EP615. Okay, let's talk about the chords first. We'll go through those real quick, and then we'll talk about what's going on with the lead. Now, this song is played in the key of G, but we don't start with a G chord. We start on the 2 chord, which is the A minor. So the first chord then is an A minor, and actually I did this little walk down. I went, and I don't know where I got that, but when I was strumming the acoustic guitar part, I did that. So it's 3rd fret, 2nd fret, down to the open A. So I did that, played my A minor, then we go to the D chord, and then we go to a G. And then we repeat that, A minor, D, G, and then there's a G7. Now we're gonna go to the next section. We go to the 4 chord, which is C, back to the D, and then watch this walk down from G. We walk it down to E minor. You've heard that in other songs, right? Now here's the only curveball I'll throw in terms of chord structures. This next chord is an A major. So remember the first time it was A minor, now we're playing an A7. And so that's our 2 chord, but it's a 2 major. You hear that in country a lot. You'll hear the 1 chord going to a major 2. So don't think that just because the circle of fifths says, you know, your 2 chord is minor, it always has to be minor. You can make any minor chord major or any major chord minor when you're composing a song. It's just going to change the vibe when you do that. Technically, it changes the key for that moment in time. But anyway, it's an A7 for that last chord, or for that chord, and then the very last chord is back to the 5 chord, which is our D. And then after the D, the song repeats. We go back to the A minor. All right, let's listen to this first little phrase, and we'll talk about what's going on. Okay, so I started with this. 4 notes. Let's look at those 4 notes. Let me show you how to play them first, and then we'll talk about where they're coming from. So it starts on the 4th string, 7th fret. That's an A note. And then we're going to come to the 4th fret, 3rd string. And then 5th, back to the 7th on the 3rd string. That's the first little phrase. And all of that fits over the A minor. Actually, it's A minor going to the D. That last note we're playing is a D note, so it fits over the D chord. But these notes are coming from the A natural minor scale. Now, I have some options here. Let me just start with this. When I'm playing this lead, I could just play in the key of the song. So remember, I mentioned the song's played in the key of G. Even though it starts on an A minor, the key of the song is G. So I could play the G major scale for everything. It would work for all these chords, with the exception of that one A major. We'd have to make a little adjustment there, but otherwise it would fit. I could also play the G major pentatonic scale if I wanted for the entire song. But what we're going to do is a little more intentional. We're going to try and really follow the chords. And so that first chord is an A minor. And so what I'm playing is out of the A minor scale. It could be A minor pentatonic scale. I could have done that, but just for that one little moment where there's the A minor in the song. So I was thinking about my A minor here, not down here in first position, but up here, using the E shape. This is from the Cage system, right? That's an A minor up here. And connected to this, I've got my A minor pentatonic scale, pattern 1. So when I started this note, this A note, that's in that minor pentatonic scale. But this next note is not in the minor pentatonic scale. However, you need to know this note because it's in your natural minor scale. It would also be in Dorian. I guess technically we're in Dorian mode here. But the same notes here for the first part of that scale anyway. So this is my minor pentatonic scale, but this is an extra note. So the first little idea I want you to walk away with, even though we've got 4 notes, but check this out. This idea, connect that to this minor shape. It doesn't seem like much, but you can get a lot of mileage just from that. So if we were playing a song in B minor, let's say, right? I could go. So you can do a little half bend on this. So all these things are coming out of these first 4 notes there. Okay, now watch this next phrase. So what I'm doing there, remember we started here. We were at this D note here. I'm going to come up 2 frets with my ring finger to the 9th fret on the 3rd string, and I'm going to play this. Let me show you how to play that, then I'll show you where all this is coming from. Remember, this is where the song goes to the G chord. So we go back to the 1 chord. So we come up and hit that 9th fret 3rd string, and then I'm going to go down to the 4th string with my index finger on the 7th fret and play this. So it's a hammer-on pull-off. So I'll do a little flick there with my middle finger on the 8th fret 4th string. And then grab, with my pinky, I grab the 10th fret 5th string. And then watch this. There's a hammer-on between the 7th fret and 9th fret on the 4th string, and then my middle finger goes down on the 8th fret 2nd string, like that. So all of that, this whole idea, fits perfectly while the song has the G chord. Now, how would I know to construct that when I'm improvising? Where does that come from? It's actually very simple. It's really I'm just playing a chord in my mind. So I'm playing a G chord right here, using that C shape. So this is, again, where the Cage system comes into play. And don't think Cage is just about chords. Inside of this shape, well, first of all, that's my G chord using the C shape. Inside of this shape, I've got my G note here on the 10th fret 5th string. I've got another one where my middle finger went down on the 8th fret 2nd string. I've got 2 G notes in there. I've also got my major scale in this position. And I've got my major pentatonic scale. Right? I've got my minor pentatonic scale. I've got all of these ideas in this container. That's why I love the Cage system. This one G chord using the C shape has all of these elements. It's got every scale, it's got everything in this one container between these frets. And so when the song goes to a G chord, I can come into this container and I can start pulling ideas. So when I play this, that's just playing off of this chord shape, right? So now you can start to see that. And when I play this, that's really just this triad. I don't always play the chord with my pinky there. Usually when I'm playing out of this shape, I just play strings 4, 3, and 2. That's where you bar here. If you're playing the G chord, bar in the 7th fret, first 4 strings. And then you put your middle finger on that 8th fret 2nd string, and then ring finger on the 9th fret 4th string. And you've got the G chord. And you can hammer on into it. It's really cool. So this whole lick then is coming from that. Now after that I went up here. I came up here and played this. Now this is also a G chord. So I've got a G here using the C shape, and then I can come up here and play a G chord using the A shape. And if I play just strings 2 and 4, I'm getting that harmonized 6. So that's where that's coming from when I go. when I come up into this, I'm just taking my ring finger and playing the 12th fret 4th string, and then my pinky, just because of the way my fingers were already here, it's just easy to slide into this position, pinky on the 12th fret 2nd string. So isn't that cool? That's connecting a G to a G. So now I can do some licks in this position and slide up into this one. And that's really how you navigate around the fretboard, at least how I do it. I just see the different chord shapes. And when I'm up here, and then I can come up here. This is all just more G chords. There's only 5 shapes. There's only 5 containers. That's why I love the Cage system. It's just 5. You can learn those. Okay, let's move on to the next section. All right, so now the song is going to repeat. We're going to play the A minor, D, and G again, and I played the same thing. So that's exactly the same. Now this time I did something different. So did a little chromatic walk up. I'm still in this container, my G container, using the C shape. The only difference is I went from before I did a little hammer on between the 7th fret and 9th fret. This time I played 7, 8, 9, and remember, just going forward, anytime you've got a space between notes when you're playing a scale, like I've got that fret in between, you can play that note. You just need to use it as a passing tone. That's playing chromatically. Right? So it gives you a whole different set of expression when you do that. You just don't want to land on those notes. So it came up to that note. All right, so I love this next phrase because it just sounds so cool. And these are some pedal steel licks that you can steal. Pedal steel licks that you can steal. And so it sounds like this. That's a way to walk from my G chord down to the C chord. Let me show you what's going on there. It's very simple. Actually, let's just think of the chords here. Take that out of it for now. If I was just strumming the chords, playing cowboy chords, and I was going from my G chord to my C chord, I could just go from a G to a C, right? But a lot of times you'll hear people play a chord and then do something like this. So notice I went G, C, G, and then to the C. So I got to the C prematurely, back to the G, and then to the C. That's one way you've heard that played in other songs. Another idea is to do that same thing, and then... Now, isn't that a little more interesting than just playing G to a C? So I went G, C, G, G, F, C. And F is the 4 chord of my C. So that's just another idea. The chord you're going to, you can play its 4 chord and then resolve to that chord. And that happens a lot of times. In fact, this chord, that sounds like that's a Bob Seger song. What is that song? I don't want to say it just for copyright reasons. You know it is. Where you go the 4 chord of the 4 chord and then the 4 chord. So that's what's going on in that song. And you hear this all the time in music. So I'm showing you that to relate it to what we're going to do here. I did the same thing with this. And so instead of me playing cowboy chords down here, this is what I was visualizing. A G chord here using this triad, playing on the top 3 strings. It's the same shape as my little D shape in first position. And then playing a C chord like this, back to my G, there's my F, and then a C like this. So these are, I'm doing the same thing I did like this, but I'm playing it with triads, G, C, G, G, F, C. Now instead of me playing that, which sounds a little bit heavy and just a little clunky, cumbersome, instead of that, I played just the top 2 strings of those same triads. And instead of me playing it just like that, I did the pedal steel move where I bar and I hammer on to those notes. So that's the technique. So out of this triad, or this shape here on strings 1 and 2, you can bar the first 2 strings here on the 7th fret and hammer on your middle finger. That's all we're going to do. And we're going to move that up a fret and bar the first 2 strings here on the 8th fret. And now we're going to do a hammer onto the 10th fret and then play just strings 1 and 2 on the 8th fret. Look at that. There's my C chord using the E shape, strings 1 and 2. Oh, now you can see where that's coming from. G, C. So that's just like an embellishment off that C chord. So we have G, C, back to the G. We're going to slide it down 2 frets and do the same thing and play an F. And then we're going to slide it down to where I'm barring on the 3rd fret and do a hammer onto the 5th fret 2nd string. And you can see what we're doing here. That's my C chord using the A shape, top part of that A shape. I'm just hammering on into that chord. So when you hear little pedal steel licks like that, little harmonies, that's where they're coming from. They're just coming from chord shapes. It's not like, you know, it's not even a scale thing. It's really just a chord shape. It's seeing those chords. And, you know, it's the same thing as me going, right? But we're just doing it with triads. So a big takeaway then is how you use this going forward. And just as an example, off of a G chord, anytime you've got a song with a G chord, let's look at what you've got now. Now you've got this, which can represent your G chord. You've got the top part of your A shape up here. So look at these little pedal steel things that represent my G. And then down here, a G chord using the E shape. As long as I resolve down to this, I've got that. So now I've got all these cool things I can do over a G chord just using these pedal steel ideas. Look at this. See how that works? And then you mix that with the fact that you can play other chords and do the same thing off other chords. It starts to open up a whole bunch of ideas. And that's just using the top 2 strings. So when I came to the C, I did that pedal steel lick. And this is what I played. Did the hammer on between the 3rd fret and the 5th fret on the 2nd string. Release that. And then I came down with my ring finger to the 5th fret 3rd string. So all together that lick goes like this. I did the same thing for the D chord, which is the next chord. All I have to do is slide it up 2 frets because look, here's my D chord using the A shape. Oh yeah. So I can use that same lick. If the song went to the G chord, I could play that lick up here. Are you starting to get that? It's just the chords. That's what makes it sound so good though, is when you can follow the chords exactly like that. So here's where the song does that walk down from the G to the E minor. And I play this. And what I'm playing there is just my G major pentatonic scale. Remember I said at the beginning of this, I could just stay in the key of the song and play that. So instead of me trying to follow these chords in this one spot, going from the G to the E minor, I could have done that, but why not just do something in the key of the song? You have that option. You don't have to pick one path at the beginning and stay on that path. You can jump back and forth. So I could, if I'm ever lost at any point and I don't know what the next chord is, I can just go back to the key of the song. I can just do the G major pentatonic scale. And that's what I'm doing here. This is pattern 4 of my G major pentatonic scale. And then, so I slide down, that's where the song goes to the A, right? You can hear me land on that A note, but I'm still staying in the G major pentatonic scale. And then the song goes to that A major, so I just played the notes of that chord. right? You can hear that. It's just the arpeggio. That's my A major chord using the E shape. So I went. When I'm here, I just switch my mind. Oh yeah, that A major chord is here. So I'll just play the notes of the chord. And then I went like this. So after I played the A major triad there, I slid into, that would be like A minor pentatonic scale pattern 2, right? Where I've got my middle finger on the 9th fret 3rd string, index finger on the 8th fret 2nd string. And I just know that this can represent my major chord here, strings 2 and 3 out of that E shape, and I can slide it up 1, 2, 3 frets, and I can get that flat 7 to get that bluesy sound. So that's just one idea. So if you're ever playing something, you want to blues it up, you just go from here to here, and you go from happy to bluesy. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of re-emphasize this by going. So I take that, I go up 2 frets, and come back to it. Now, there's different ways you can look at that. You can look at this as my 6 to the 9 chord, right? Just playing strings 2 and 3. That's one way to think about it. There's lots of different ways. But I just think of it as like, I've got this happy sound off of this shape, strings 2 and 3. I can come up here and get bluesy by going up 3 frets. And then I can go up 2 frets from that and walk it down into that just to kind of play off of this shape. So you hear that in blues quite a bit, this whole idea. And then the last chord, we go back to the D chord and I play. So I slid into, this is what I was picturing, D chord using the A shape. Actually, D chord, I'm using that triad there from that, but I'm up in this neighborhood, which would be my G shape, the top part of my G shape. Actually, I slid into it like that, hitting the 2nd string and then the 3rd string. And when I'm up here, this will be a light bulb for some of you. This is my major pentatonic scale pattern 1. Look at this. That's my D major pentatonic scale. You can connect it now to your A shape or your G shape, however you want to see it. So when I played that little lick there, it's just my major pentatonic scale pattern 1. All right, so I just covered the entire solo, a lot of information. I hope you walk away with a few ideas. That's always what I say at the end of these videos, is walk away with something. If you can't get it all or you don't understand all of it, that's okay. Just try and get some little part of it and then put it into play by playing it along with another jam track or something, just so that you can understand how that lick works. It's not married to just this song. That's not the idea of learning how to improvise. You need to learn these licks in context so that you can use them in other things. And then that just becomes part of your vocabulary. All right, if you've liked this lesson, give me a thumbs up and then leave a comment. I always appreciate the comments. I read through all of them. If you've been confused by anything, let me know that. I will try and clear it up. And then if you've had any breakthroughs or anything that's just sort of jumped off the page, or little aha moments or light bulb moments or whatever, leave that as well. That's always super helpful. All right, that's what I have for this week. I'll see you next week for something new.